I'm going to teach you how to make training programs based on movement patterns rather than just choosing random exercises, so your programs actually make sense, uses the exercises that you or your clients need, and avoids progression limitations. Hi, my name is Iman. I'm a personal trainer. I've been making programs based on movement patterns for a long time for many clients, and it works the best because it gives you the space and opportunity to make sure that you can progress or regress on certain exercises for your clients or yourself, and makes it way easier through different phases to actually program the exercises. But first of all, let's dig into what is movement pattern, because not everyone is a personal trainer. So if you are and you already know what movement patterns are, you can skip this section. So a movement pattern is how your body works. It's not a specific exercise. For example, we have the movement pattern of squatting. Now it can be done with a dumbbell, with a barbell, with a machine, whether it's a hack squat or a Smith machine. It's not a specific exercise. Squatting is a movement pattern. Now, what's the difference between each of those exercises with the same movement pattern? Some of them are more stable, but some of them needs more stability, and it relies on your own muscles. Some of them are harder, some of them are easier, and there is no such a thing as the best squatting pattern exercise. It may be one for you, but not one for everyone, because everyone has different goals, different fitness levels, and different experience. Now we have lots of movements in different plane of motions, which are frontal plane, sagittal plane, and transverse plane. But I'm gonna make it as simple as possible today. Now let me give you a list of movement patterns that you can have in your mind, or write it down, take a screenshot, whatever you want to do. When it comes to shoulder exercises, we have 3 parts on our shoulders: front delt, side delt, and rear delt. So you want to have a sort of shoulder adduction, same thing in sagittal plane. And for your rear delts, you have a transverse pulling, which works for rear delts the best. When it comes to chest training, we have horizontal pushing and a transverse pushing. When we're working our back, again, a vertical pull and a horizontal pull. For your biceps, you want to have an elbow flexion with supinated wrist. When it comes to triceps, you want to have a sort of shoulder extension, a close grip push, or an overhead extension. Now when it comes to legs, we have squatting pattern and hinging movements. We have lunging. We have 2 different calf movements. One is a calf raise and the other one is a tibialis raise. We also have hip extension for glutes. Let me know in the comments if I'm missing any certain movement patterns, but these are the ones. The reason that you need to understand every single movement pattern is to understand what type of movements you're doing, to make sure that you're maximizing your results and make sure you're not avoiding or missing out on a single particular movement pattern. And if you've watched so far, make sure to stick to the video, because at the end of this video, we are taking everything that we learned and implement it in a 3-day program to see what an example of a program based on movement patterns look like. Now, there are 3 main reasons why every single program fails if they're not using logic behind it and they're just going with the vibes. The first and the most common one comes to choosing way too many similar movement patterns in a single session. Let's say I'm doing a push day, right? I start off with some bench presses. Nice, some 3 sets of bench press, everything's good. Then the next thing you know, I'm moving up to the benches, I'm putting it in an incline angle, and I'm pressing up the dumbbells in an incline chest press. And then again, I'm going back to the turf and doing some push-ups. Nice, I did 3 chest exercises. I should be good for my chest, right? But you see, that's way too many horizontal pushing movements. You're missing out on transverse plane and vertical pushing movements. Now, how do you fix that? You're gonna make sure that you have 1 or maximum 2 of the same movement pattern exercises in a single session. If I'm doing 3 horizontal chest presses, I'm going to fatigue myself. I'm not going to get as much results as I potentially could get, and it's going to affect the rest of my workout. Talking about missing on a whole movement pattern, the second biggest mistake that everyone makes is completely wiping out a whole movement pattern. Let me be real. I've done a lot of squatting movement patterns when it came to leg training, but I've never ever thought about how much skill I'm missing on hinging movements. So you always need to make sure that you're never ever missing out on a certain movement pattern, because movement patterns are not just exercises that you do, they are skills that you need to practice and get better at. Now, the third but not the last mistake that everyone makes when it comes to programming is not having a progression plan. Now, if you're not progressing on your exercises, you're not going to get stronger, you're not going to get results, you're not going to build that muscle, you're going to plateau, you're going to stay in where you are. Imagine a client walking in and they're fairly new to the gym, they've done some work, they're not an expert. So what you do for their first session, you're going to give them a Bulgarian squat. They're going to fumble, get uncomfortable, they're not going to like it. It's a lunging movement pattern, but you're giving them a fairly advanced exercise in that movement pattern. So what you could do is to start off with bodyweight split squats. Gradually, after they reached a certain rep range, you can add weight to it. Then you can go for reverse lunging, then forward lunging, then slightly elevate their rear foot, and then go for a Smith machine Bulgarian split squat. When they found that stability, then you can go for a dumbbell Bulgarian split squat. You gotta have a way of progression for them. Even if that means you only stay on the split squats on the first end, you gotta make sure that they're progressing, either if it's an exercise advancement, a rep range progression, or heavier weight that they're lifting. Awesome. So now we're getting into the fun part. We want to have the framework ready for us and then make a 3-day program together. Now, before moving to the first step of the framework, you need to understand that each person is different. They have different fitness background levels, they have different goals, and there are lots of different variables that goes into a program. So in this case, we are assuming that there's a teenager who's healthy and has no issues and wants to build muscle and get jacked and wants to focus on hypertrophy. So the first step into making a program based on a movement pattern is to decide the frequency of the training during the week. For example, if I'm working 2 days a week, it's best to have 2 full body training per week. If I'm doing 3 days a week, I would rather do an upper, lower, and a full body day. Step 2, we get to assign each movement pattern to each day. So in this case, we're doing 3 days. We want to do an upper, lower, and a full body. So let's start with the lower day. We're gonna have squatting pattern, a hinging pattern, an exercise for our calves, any sort of calf raises, and I usually like to add wall tibialis raises just to have ankle mobility to make sure that we're doing everything right and we have enough mobility to do those exercises. I also want to add any sort of hip extension for our glutes. There's also a hip abduction and abduction that I forgot to talk about. For our second day, we have upper body. What I like to do is to have a sort of horizontal and a vertical push. Same thing with the pulling movement, a sort of vertical pulling and a horizontal pull, combining it with an elbow flexion and an elbow extension for our biceps and triceps. And then I want to have a sort of shoulder adduction for our lateral raises. Now moving on to our third day, a full body. Now that may sound scary and you guys may think that you need to add all of those movement patterns together and put it in a day. It's going to take you so long, but no, don't worry, because we're not focusing on fitting everything together in a full body. We want to make sure that we have enough to cover as much as we can, as efficiently as we can, and as effective as we can in a session. So for my full body sessions, I like to have a sort of horizontal pressing and a vertical pulling, combining it with a squatting pattern and a hinging pattern, and having a vertical push. Now, boom, what we have here is a 3-day workout split with every movement pattern assigned, and we've made sure to cover most of the movement patterns to get as much as we can, as effectively as we can, and as efficiently as we can in the split. Perfect. Now that we have the whole framework ready, we just need to choose the exercises that are appropriate for that individual. Now, this is what I would choose in this circumstance. And be careful, changing the exercises every single week is not called progression. It's just for entertainment. You need to make sure that that person or you are doing a certain exercise well enough, properly enough to step up to the next progression. If you have any more questions or you need to add anything to this video, add any other values, just drop it down in the comments. Everyone would appreciate it. And once you understand movement patterns, you will never ever copy TikTok and Instagram workouts ever again, and it's gonna make your life way more easier for you and for your clients. Now, if you want me to break down hypertrophy in another video based on science and not TikTok science, the actual science, just let me know in the comments and I'll make a video on it. Stay positive, make sure to be kind to everyone, and chase their smiles, not the numbers. Have a wonderful day.